He was the biggest star in the world. But he was also just a man who felt things deeply. It's a man who was often lonely, even in a room full of people, and certain songs could hit him hard. They could cut through the noise, the fame, the bubble he lived in. They could reach the part of him that was still the boy from Tupelo. The part that hurt. There was one song in particular, it came out in the mid-1960s. It wasn't his. It was by a duo with deep, soulful voices. But when Elvis heard it, it stopped him cold. He told the people closest to him that it was the truest song he had ever heard. He felt like the writers had been spying on him, like they had written it about him in Priscilla. He said it was a direct confession of his own failures, his own shortcomings as a husband, as a man. To understand why a simple pop song could crush a king, you have to understand where he was in his life. The late 1960s were a strange time for him. On the surface, things were looking up. He had just pulled off the greatest comeback in music history. The 1968 television special showed the world he still had it. The raw power, the danger, the charisma. He was dressed in black leather, he was thin and hungry. He wasn't the goofy movie star anymore, he was Elvis. The real Elvis. And that comeback led to Las Vegas. It seemed like a triumph. He was the highest paid performer in the city's history. He sold out every show. Night after night, he walked on stage to thunderous applause. The orchestra would swell, the lights would hit him. He was a god in a white jumpsuit. He had an army of fans who worshipped him. He had all the money he could ever want. He lived in a penthouse suite, he could have anything, do anything. But it was a cage. A beautiful golden cage. The routine was brutal. 2 shows a night for weeks on end. It was the same set list, the same stage, the same city. The initial excitement faded. It became a job, a very well-paying job, but a job nonetheless. He was isolated. He slept all day and worked all night. His world shrank to the hotel. He was surrounded by his guys, the Memphis Mafia. They were his friends, his employees, his bodyguards. They protected him from the world. But they also kept the world away from him. He was lonely. He was bored. The man who had shaken up the entire world with his music was now singing medleys to tourists. He knew it. He felt the artistic spark dimming. He had wanted to be a great actor, like Marlon Brando or James Dean. Instead, he had made a string of terrible movies with silly plots and forgettable songs. He had given up creative control years ago, and he never truly got it back. He felt like a product, a commodity. This was a deep, quiet failure that sat in his gut. The failure to protect his own talent, and then there was Priscilla. He had met her when she was just a teenager. He had molded her, he had created his perfect woman, he put her on a pedestal. She was the pristine, untouched Madonna in his life, separate from the wildness of his rock and roll world. They finally married in 1967, and their daughter, Lisa Marie, was born 9 months later. On the outside, they were the perfect couple, the king and his queen. But the reality was different. The pedestal was a lonely place for Priscilla to be. He was gone a lot, and when he was home at Graceland, he was often distant, lost in his own world. The intimacy between them began to fade. The passion that defined his music and his persona wasn't always present in his own bedroom. He had old-fashioned ideas about wives and mothers. After she had a baby, he saw her differently. It created a distance he didn't know how to cross. He was not a faithful husband. He couldn't be. Women threw themselves at him, and he was Elvis Presley. It was part of the life he had built. He loved Priscilla, there was no doubt about that. But he was also a man with huge appetites, and very few people who would ever tell him no. Priscilla knew about the other women. She tried to live with it, but it chipped away at her. It chipped away at them. So when he heard that song on the radio, it wasn't just a song. It was his life, it was the soundtrack to his own quiet heartbreak. The song starts with that incredibly deep, low voice thing. It's almost a rumble. It's a man's voice, full of doubt and pain. It sets a mood immediately. It's serious. It's a conversation you don't want to have, but you have to. The first lines are a killer. They talk about a kiss, but not a passionate kiss. A kiss where the other person's eyes are open. You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips. Anyone who has ever been in a long-term relationship that's starting to die knows that feeling. It's the moment a familiar act of love becomes a mechanical gesture. The magic is gone. It's just 2 people going through the motions. Elvis felt that. He knew he and Priscilla were going through the motions. The easy intimacy they once had was gone, replaced by a polite distance. Then the song goes on. And there's no tenderness, like before in your fingertips. It's another small, devastating detail. Touch is so important. The way someone holds your hand, the way they touch your arm. When the tenderness goes, you feel it. It's a coldness that speaks louder than any words. He was a physical person. He expressed himself with his body on stage. He understood the language of touch. And he knew that tenderness was gone with Priscilla. He saw her pulling away. He felt her unhappiness, and The next line shows the agony of knowing. You're trying hard not to show it, but baby, I know it. This was Elvis's hell. He was an intuitive person. He could read people. He could feel the mood in a room. He knew Priscilla wasn't happy. He could see her trying to pretend, trying to keep up appearances for the sake of their daughter, for the sake of the image. But he knew. And knowing, but not knowing how to fix it, is a special kind of torture. He was the king. He could fix anything. He could buy a car, a house, a plane. But he couldn't fix this. The song builds from there. The chorus comes in, a huge wave of sound. It's a desperate plea. The singer is begging. He's admitting that something is gone, something vital. He keeps repeating the phrase, that feeling is gone, it's gone, it's gone. Well, it's like trying to convince himself or trying to face the horrible truth. For Elvis, that feeling wasn't just the romantic love between him and Priscilla. It was bigger than that. He had lost that loving feeling for his career. The joy he got from singing in the early days, the thrill of rebellion, the pure energy of creating something new. That was gone. It was replaced by the demands of the Vegas contract, the pressure to be Elvis every night. Music wasn't always an act of passion anymore. It was an obligation. He had lost that loving feeling for his life. He was trapped by his own fame. He couldn't just go to a movie or a grocery store. He was a prisoner of his own myth. The joy of simple things was gone. So when he heard that song, he heard the death of his marriage, the death of his artistic freedom, and the death of his own simple happiness all rolled into one. The lyrics continue with the singer remembering how it used to be. You had a sweet love, a sweet love. He remembers the good times, the passion, the connection. Elvis had those memories. He remembered the early days with Priscilla in Germany, the excitement of their secret romance, the early years at Graceland. But now, those memories just made the present feel colder. And then comes the most vulnerable part of the song, the part that must have just destroyed him. The singer offers to get down on his knees. Baby, I'd get down on my knees for you. Think about that. This is Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. A man who commanded stadiums. A man who had presidents and movie stars wanting to meet him. He was the definition of masculine pride and power. And this song was about a man so broken and desperate that he was willing to get on his knees and beg. For Elvis, a man trapped by his own image of strength, this was a confession of ultimate vulnerability. It was an admission of powerlessness. He knew deep down that he would do anything to get her back, to get that feeling back. But he also knew that just begging wouldn't be enough. The damage was already done. He felt the failure was his. He had been the one who was absent. He had been the one who was unfaithful. He had been the one who put her on a pedestal and then couldn't connect with her as a real woman. He had failed to be the partner she needed. He had failed to see that his queen was also a prisoner in their castle. Priscilla was young. She wanted to live. She wanted a husband, not just an icon who visited her between tours and movie shoots. She eventually started an affair with her karate instructor, a man who was there, a man who saw her as a person. Elvis was devastated when he found out, but a part of him must have understood. He had created the void and someone else had filled it, so he took the song. And he made it his own. He started performing it in his Las Vegas shows. It was a bold move. His shows were all about energy, excitement, and nostalgia. He sang his big hits, the crowd pleasers. He was the conquering hero on stage. And then in the middle of all that spectacle, he would launch into this epic ballad of heartbreak and failure. His version was different from the original. The original was soulful and controlled. Elvis's version was operatic. It was huge. It was raw. When he sang it, you could feel the pain. He wasn't just covering a song, he was giving a testimony. He would stand there, under the hot lights, in a suit, covered in jewels, a living god to thousands of people. And he would sing about being a man who had lost everything that mattered. The opening lines would come out as a deep, mournful proclamation. His voice, one of the most famous voices on the planet, would be filled with a genuine sadness. When he sang the line about getting down on his knees, he would often physically act it out, dropping to one knee on stage. The crowd would go wild, seeing it as part of the show, part of the drama. But for him, it was real. It was a public act of penance. He was confessing his sins to a stadium full of strangers because he couldn't fix things with the one person he was singing to, whether she was in the audience or 1,000 miles away. His friends and bandmates knew what the song meant to him. They could see it in his eyes when he performed it. It took a toll on him. Some nights he would nail it, and it would be a moment of breathtaking, tragic art. Other nights he would get emotional and mess it up, laughing it off to the audience. But the laughter was a mask for the pain. The song became a centerpiece of his concerts for a reason. It allowed him to express the profound sense of loss that was coming to define his later years. It wasn't just about Priscilla. They did divorce in 1973. They remained close, which is a testament to the love that was still there. But the family he had dreamed of was broken. That was a failure he carried with him. The song was also about his battle with himself. He was losing control. His dependency on prescription drugs was growing. His weight fluctuated. The vibrant, dangerous young man was disappearing, replaced by a bloated, sad parody of himself. The loving feeling he had lost was also his love for himself. He was a deeply spiritual man, a man who read the Bible constantly. He knew he was failing to live up to his own standards. He was failing his body, his talent, his spirit, and this song was a way to say it all out loud, disguised as entertainment. Every time he sang it, he was telling the world, I messed up. I lost something beautiful, and I don't know how to get it back. He was telling the story of his marriage. He was telling the story of his career. He was telling the story of his life. It's a powerful irony. A song written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, perfected in the studio by Phil Spector, and made a hit by the Righteous Brothers, became the most personal song in Elvis Presley's catalog. He didn't write a single word of it, but he lived every line. He felt it was a confession of his failures because it stripped away the myth. It cut through the jumpsuit, the sideburns, and the legend. It was a song about a man realizing, maybe too late, that the woman he loves is gone. Not physically at first, but emotionally. Her heart has left the building. And he's left standing there, knowing he's the reason why. For a man who had everything, it was a song about the one thing he couldn't buy, command or win back with a simple song. It was a song about the quiet, devastating, and irreversible end of a beautiful thing. The song was, You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'.